Hey guys, I'm your host, Bobby Jones. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that this is part two of my two-part mailbag conversation with Matthew Newton. While it doesn't really matter what order you take the episodes in, I just want to make sure you don't miss out on part one, which happened to air last week. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Yeah, well, I know we've been focusing a lot on real estate here, but I think we've got some other questions that maybe are a little more outside of the real estate realm.
So it's interesting because this actually segues really well into the next question is how do you combat analysis paralysis? And interestingly enough, I actually had an email from one of our listeners about this a couple months ago where they were looking at an area. I forget what town it was in. It was some Georgia or North Carolina, but they're looking at an area and they just couldn't decide about, where do I want to invest? And then what if this happens? And well, my spouse necessarily isn't always on board. And it was just all this, you could just hear the chaos. Mm-hmm. And all it really was just analysis paralysis. It was just this panic. I've been looking at this for years. And like, for me, I've always been really good at preparing to do things, mm-hmm. and it never taking off. For me, what got me through my initial analysis paralysis, especially with real estate investing, was the pandemic. I've always been kind of forward thinking about what I want to do, starting companies and all that. But the big I need to diversify moment was when the pandemic happened. We were out of work, and I watched my 401k just taking a nosedive, and I went, "Oh, this is all I have for retirement." Mm-hmm. It was a very scary feeling. And I said, okay, well, I have always talked about getting started in real estate. And that's when, I set out, I said, okay, I started reading books. I started talking to people. I said, all right, well, this is going to happen. Within 6 months, I'm going to own a house. I'm going to own my first real estate, my rental property. And it was really scary to take that first leap. But honestly, it was believing in myself and having a good support team, having my wife who said, literally, I told her, I'm like, honey, I could lose all of our money. And she went, are you crazy? I just saw you spend a whole month reading and talking to people. She's like, you're a total nerd and you're going through all this stuff. I've never seen something more prepared. You know what? If you lose all of our money, then I know you did everything you could. And you know what? It was just a lesson, and you're going to learn from your failure. And then next time you won't lose all our money, and it'll be fine. So like the big thing with analysis paralysis, I hate to say, is it's believing in yourself. It's not being afraid to fail, because failure is part of the success process. Mm-hmm. I failed numerous times. I'm sure you've been in the same boat. And you take one of those lessons and build on it every single time. And every time you either succeed or fail better.
Yeah. Fail forward.
Fail forward. Absolutely.
No, and I love that you brought up the idea of setting a deadline for yourself. If you hit this deadline and you haven't done what you said you were going to do, then that's going to trigger something within you. And either you're going to, you're going to crap or get off the pot, but I have to tell though, a story about my own analysis paralysis, because I went through this with stock investing. Like my wife and I were savers and always have been. We would shovel money into our retirement accounts. I had trouble reconciling the idea of retiring early and using these retirement vehicles that wouldn't let you retire until you're 60, because I wanted to retire earlier than that. But I figured that was a problem for another day. I needed to give time and compounding a chance to work. But what I did was I invested in index funds And I had always told myself, I'm going to start, like I followed the Motley Fool. I'm going to start investing in some individual companies for like 10% of my portfolio just to boost my returns. But I want to do the research and I want to do the analysis. And for years, I watched stock like, Marvel Studios and Netflix and Amazon and Apple and all these companies. I watched them go bonkers. And I'm like, those were companies I was tracking and those are companies I was going to invest in. And I never did. And then I worried at that point, well, is it over? Did I miss the boat? I better not get in now because I've already missed all of these returns and I've already missed this stuff. And that's analysis paralysis is real. But you have to trust yourself. And I could look at, the people that I was working with and analyzing these stocks with were saying, this is still a good buy. This still has room to run. You're not too late. You should get in. And doing my own analysis, I could see that, wow, I mean, they've been just gangbusters. And they should continue to do so because the runway is still there. All the fundamentals are still there. And so when I finally did make that jump and I started investing in some of these individual companies, sure, I had a couple that didn't work out well, but overall, it helped to boost my returns because I was investing in good companies. And that gave me the confidence. Once you do it, once you get out there and you learn about something, you start to gain that confidence that, okay, you know what? I got a couple losers, but they're not the end of the world. Overall, things are working. And you have to trust that process that you're setting up for yourself. You tweak it along the way, for sure. And it was the same way for me when it came to real estate investing. I waited a long time and I did a lot of research, but I was quicker to act because I had more faith in myself. I didn't have as much analysis paralysis. Sure, I went out there and I made some big mistakes and they were expensive lessons. But overall, our retirement accounts and our retirement future looks so much brighter because I got myself off the couch.
And really, if you think about like when it comes to analysis paralysis, it's easy to make excuses. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can make excuses for just about anything. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, "Oh, real estate, you're really in for it now." I wouldn't buy anything, and I'm like, I would. I mean, if the deal is there, if the numbers work, I'm not playing a 2-year game. This is my long game. This is my retirement. I'm looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road for retirement for this stuff. So if I can make the numbers work on paper now, you know what? Real estate probably will drop 5 to 10% in price. And that's okay. And when it does, I'll probably buy more then too. But if something walks across my table right now with a good rate and or a good price or something that I think I could add value to, I have no problem pulling the trigger. Because I always say, when's the best time to buy real estate? Yesterday.
Yeah.
I would not. You will wait forever. I've been saying for the last 2 years, man, real estate's about to drop. And you know what? For 2 years, I've been wrong until about the last month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I thank God that I didn't stop and I kept buying because this is great. Now I have a nice passive income coming in every month that I'd have to do very little for, which is very nice. And now it's just kind of starting to snowball on itself, it's a good feeling. And it's not because I'm brilliant or smart. It's because I did some homework and I acted. And that's the big thing, is just to act.
And you see that with people who, they're thinking about getting into some of these side gigs and like, oh, I want to start my own aesthetics business, but I'm just not sure. And I don't know if I can do it, or I'm not sure if I have the time or whatever. And they make excuses. And then 6 months later, you're no closer to your actual goal of having your own aesthetics business. People that want to get into, these CBD and the marijuana crazes that are going on right now. The tailwind's there. Like you can go now, and it's not showing any signs of slowing. So analyze what you got to analyze, and then get in the game. And I think a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines because they expect for something to go wrong, especially in this environment where there's a lot of doom and gloom. But now is the time when people are making some real wealth because they're making things happen when other people are sitting on the sidelines. So getting over those humps, those initial first big move that you got to make, I think that's a real big key, because once you see that I can do this, and even if I lost money, it didn't hurt me. Like, hey, I still have my job. I still have my income. I still have my lifestyle. What kind of a hit did I really take? Maybe you took a bit of a financial hit, but you learned from it, and you can apply that to the next time you go to make a move. Not all experiences are going to be sunshine and roses, but that doesn't mean that you can't take a lot out of them and use that to really propel yourself into the future.
I completely agree. So one of my favorite questions is, you run the Plan B podcast. How many rabbit holes have you done? 50, 100?
Oh gosh. I'd have to look back. I think it's around 190 episodes, and so a quarter of those, I would say. So what's that? That comes out to about 50, 45, 50.
So you yourself have discussed at least 50 different side gigs, Plan Bs, and other things. Of those, what are some of your favorites? If your callers were wanting to pick a side gig, what would you recommend? What would you do if you had your pick?
Yeah, I love the question. Obviously, the one that I've chosen to do is apartment syndication, passive and active. I really enjoy the passive aspect of apartment syndication, but we've talked a lot about that. So I want to get into some of the other ones that I really like. One of them, if you're first starting out, if you're one of these people who either you're single, or maybe you're just wanting to get into real estate, but you're willing to move around a little bit and you're willing to deal with a little bit of discomfort, doing house hacking is a phenomenal way to get your first real estate property, have your own house, have your own home, your own setup, but also to be making money on the side with your real estate investment. And for those that don't know, house hacking is basically, okay, you're going to buy a duplex or triplex or quadplex. You live in one of those units and you rent the rest of them out, and you can use this. I mean, if you buy a home, but you rent out a room in the house, for Airbnb, it's the same kind of thing. You're using somebody else and their, that rental income to help pay for the mortgage on that property. And it can make such a huge difference in your runway for real estate investing. So I love the idea of house hacking. And, a lot of people are listening to this show. Hey, I'm married with a couple of kids. Like, I'm not going to go live in a duplex, man. Okay, that's fine. I'm not talking to you necessarily. Or, hey, you know what? You're married with a couple of kids and some of them are getting to be college age or something. Okay, well, you can buy them a property, or you can help them buy their own property, and now they get started on their own journey, or you're talking to some younger people in your life, you got some younger cousins or whatever. This is something that can help them get started on a better path in their real estate journey. So I love the idea of house hacking. Another one that I've got a couple here, so just bear with me. But one of the ones that I've always loved is the loan signing agent. And for people that don't know, loan signing agents are basically notaries who are experienced in different loan contracts. And so if you've ever, done a refi on your mortgage or bought a home or whatever, somebody's got to come and watch you sign all that paperwork. They have to visually see you sign the paperwork. They point you in the direction of the right places to sign and everything like that. That person is a loan signing agent, and they get paid to be there with you. And it's not a small amount. It is, it can be, a couple of $100s for them to come in and spend, 45 minutes to an hour with you and watch you sign papers. Okay. It's not strenuous. It's not mentally taxing. And, you're helping people to do the right things, buy their loans. You're showing them, making sure that they understand the terms of their loan that they're taking out. And it's something that you can do, you can do it on a flexible schedule. You can, a lot of people like to have people come into their houses at night when they're not working. So if you're looking to do something kind of outside business hours, it's a great little side gig. Or you can do it full time, and you can make upwards of six figures doing this thing. And the real education that it takes is, becoming a notary, and then perhaps taking an online course to learn more about loan signings. So that's one of my favorites. Let's see, merchant processing, our residual payments episode. Credit card usage is everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's a little machine, you put your card in. Somebody out there is making a percentage of those profits, and it's not just the banks. It's not just the credit card companies. The people that manage those accounts, that manage those businesses and work as that go-between for the business and the banks, those people are making a percentage of those profits, and it is largely passive income. You keep those customers happy. You're making sure they've got enough receipt paper, or maybe they got extra notepads or whatever. Give them a new machine every once in a while. But the idea is that you can make residual income based on the percentage that you're getting of that cut of profits that they make for every credit card transaction that they make. So that's one that I think is very intriguing. And then finally, I'm going to go with options trading. We're looking at the stock market right now, and it has been a real roller coaster, but mainly down for much of the last year. However, the idea of trading options could have protected so many people from some of the losses that they've had. And so learning more about trading options to protect your current stock investments, I think, is a very powerful tool that you can learn. You can also learn how to options trade and basically creating and selling contracts to create income. And just doing that can really work for people to create that side income that they're looking for. And it's stuff that you do largely over a computer and in your spare time. That's what I got, man.
That's it. You're the guru of Plan Bs, so it's a great question. My personal Plan Bs, which is interesting. I've had a handful of them throughout the years. One of my favorite ones is I always wanted to open a bar, which is a great way to lose money.
Yeah.
So I looked even further into it, and I'm like, what I want to do is I'd love to brew beer and then open a bar that sells my beer. So I actually did some research on it, and it looks like a great thing to do. Not for me right now. I read the Lagunitas story. It's called, I think it's So You Want a Brewery by Tony McGee, I think.
Okay.
And it was kind of his trials and tribulations opening, a brewery, which was very eye-opening. And it was like, this is going to be a lot more work than I thought. So maybe we'll shelve that to when I want to retire. One of my other, if I was going to do anything else, also one of the things I actually really like, because I just think it would be fun. Like, and part of mine, it's like, don't get me wrong, I always look for a great ROI, but I look for something that's going to be fun. Like I like real estate. Real estate's shockingly fun. Owning a laundromat. I would love to own a laundromat. I think it would just be an absolute blast to manage one. It's more work than I feel like doing, like, physically right now. So once again, something for me to look at down the line.
Yeah.
I write nothing off, but I actually, a couple of the books on my shelf behind me are pretty much how to open a laundromat, A to Z.
Cool.
I probably read about 4 of them because I just found it really interesting. The whole laundromat culture. I think you did a podcast on it once too, and it was.
I did.
It was good. I went down a great little rabbit hole on YouTube. I probably watched 20 hours of, hey, this is Random Joe who owns a laundromat. Here are the funny things that my customers did, and the problems I've had. Which, I mean, very entertaining. Very, I just think that would be fun. Plus, I like a mostly cash business. Something that also, I'm very big on giving back to the communities that you're in. So I really want to open a business in the towns that I live in. I just think it would be a lot of fun. So yeah, the laundromat's always been one of my things. I'll open a brewery, laundromat, bar, all in one.
Yeah, well, and I'll have to do a rabbit hole on breweries and restaurants, because they are two separate things. But yeah, and the laundromat thing, I really enjoyed that episode. And that's the thing about these episodes. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't enjoy going down these rabbit holes myself. And most of the time, I come away more impressed with a particular side gig than I was before getting into it. And that's, I think people are just ingenious with what they can come up with and their different ways to make money. Sure, some of them are more work than I would want to do, and but that doesn't mean that it's not creative, that it's not intriguing to really get into what it looks like to run some of these businesses on your own.
I honestly, like, one more thing. I really loved the ice episode you did about 2 weeks ago. Never thought about owning an ice machine. Never thought about how, lucrative that could be. Also, never thought about owning an ice machine in a cold area, which was even more fun.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. And it's funny because, it makes me think about my time in Wisconsin, and some of the most popular places were ice cream shops, in the winter. And it's just something that people in the North really lean into, with regards to those kinds of restaurants. So, but yeah, the ice machine, I mean, that was wonderful when Courtney came on and was telling us about that, because there's so much. That's the thing. There's so much more nuance to some of these things than it looks like on the outside. So there's so many of these TikTok videos, and I just did this. I went to the store and I bought these items, and then I sold them on Amazon and made this much money. And it's like, okay, you make that sound really easy. And perhaps it is once you have the systems in place. But you have to get those systems in place first. And so what does that look like? That whole process of getting something launched and off the ground. That's the process that I like to really get into and see what does it look like? What does the work look like for doing those kinds of things? So
TikTok is a great graveyard of random interesting ideas that don't always have the full the breadth.
Yeah.
I buy couches for $100 and then I clean them and I sell them for $1,000. You see all these random things on TikTok.
Yeah. Like the idea of flipping cars, well, you can, depending on the state you live in, you can only do a couple of those before you have to go through all these hoops to be recognized as like a car dealer, and that's completely different. But it's fun to go down all these rabbit holes,
Yeah, I know I certainly enjoy listening to them. So, so the last question I have, and I honestly think is probably the most important, is what does it take to succeed in business? What does it take to succeed in life? What does it take to succeed on all these plan Bs that we do?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a really good question. And I think it's a combination of factors. One of the big ones is consistent effort. You have to be consistent with the efforts that you put into something. When you choose what you're going to go after, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to get discouraged when things aren't going the way you want them to in the timeline that maybe you've set up. Because what I found is, like, most of these things that you look into, they take time to develop, and it's something that it typically takes twice as long or longer. I joke a lot about, it takes 10 years to make an overnight millionaire, and it's so true, because it can take a lot of time and a lot of effort for a long period of time to really find the success that most people are actually looking for. So those are some of the things that I think are the keys to success.
I always say, I love my one quote is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. Believing in yourself really is the biggest key to success. And, it takes 10 years to make an overnight millionaire. It really is. It's consistent effort. It's not giving up. It's trying and doing as much as you can. It's doing your due diligence and leaning in. It's having a good support structure. One of the biggest things to my success is my mom and my wife. They believe in me. They help me when things don't go right. They celebrate when things do. Having a good, strong, I guess, family of some sort unit really does help you succeed. I know in my first business venture, my business partners were fantastic. I have drive, and I think I have what it takes, but I know I definitely leaned on my two business partners, and because of them, we came up with something great.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is the team that you surround yourself with. One of the things I've always, I've heard, and I think it's true is, you're a combination of the 5 people that you talk to and hang out with most. So if you're hanging out with people who are negative, who are glass half empty, who are always discouraging, you're probably not going to go anywhere. It's when you swap it out to people that believe in themselves, that discuss, how do you make money? How do you succeed in life? What does it take to be happy? And you surround yourself with these people that are either successes or aiming to be successes. They help lift you up.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. And, and I want to touch on too, one of the other things, and I say it at the beginning of every rabbit hole episode, is knowing yourself and setting reasonable goals, knowing your strengths and weaknesses and your own goals. And so those are things that can help you. I know that I have shiny object syndrome. Like, I got it bad. Obviously, I have this podcast for a reason. And it's because my eyes are always wandering when it comes to different side gigs and ways to make money. So knowing that about myself, what can I do to channel that energy into something that's focused and to create reasonable goals for myself? How can I keep myself on track for my own goals? So I can view that as both a strength and a weakness. And so how do I create an environment that makes that weakness into more of a strength? And how can I set up those reasonable goals for myself? Well, maybe I don't work as quickly as some other people. I'm not willing to bust my hump for a side gig. So that's going to change the side gigs that I look at and I like, off the top of my head. Whereas other people, they want to put their nose to the grindstone and they want to just churn to make something happen. Well, that's why there's something out there for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be successful, knowing yourself is a big key to that. And then setting reasonable goals for whatever project or side gig or investment it is that you're getting into.
I think we discussed it in our first podcast together when I said, why do you do what you do? It's, what is your end goal? And once you have your end goal in mind, whether it's to spend time with your family, whether it's to make X amount of money a year, it becomes really easy to make decisions on where do you want to go and what's important.
Yeah. No, I love it. This has been such a fascinating conversation. And, I know, you and I could go on for another hour, but, I think we're going to have to wrap things up here. And I want to invite the listeners, hey, if you enjoyed this mailbag episode, just make sure you let us know in your review of the podcast, hit that 5-star review. Let us know in your comments and reviews of the podcast what you thought. If you have questions that we didn't get to today that you want to know more about, you can reach out to us. My contact info will be in the show notes and it's up here on the video. Visit my website and, come check things out. Let us know. You can put those questions in the reviews of the show too. But Matt's going to have his contact information. We'll have it in the show notes. I'll have mine. Make sure you reach out to us and let us know what you thought of our episode today. But that's going to, I think, wrap things up for this first inaugural mailbag episode.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah, it was great being here. I appreciate you inviting me.
That's going to do it for our mailbag episodes. If you enjoyed these episodes, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. And if you have any questions that you'd like us to cover on air in the future, you can send them to me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com or simply leave your question in your podcast review. I'll see you next week. And until then, stay safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.